Hey guys, this is Tim Smolens reporting for High Castle Tele Orchestra. Today I wanted to share with you a production trick I use that uses a real cassette tape deck to sort of dirty up certain elements of your recordings and give them a more sort of pleasing analog aesthetic or lo-fi, whatever you want to call it. Please comment, like, subscribe below, as that really helps me reach more people. As many of you know, I'm going to be starting an online conservatory early next year that teaches all kinds of stuff, from music composition, songwriting, arranging, harmonic series, and sort of the mathematical basis of, musical harmony, as well as, production techniques and recording techniques and engineering stuff that can help make your recordings pop a little more and maybe give some, more pleasing aesthetics to some of them. If you are anything like me, you listen to some of those old recordings from the 50s and 60s and some of the old foreign soundtracks and surf songs, and the recording tones they would get just are mind-blowing, especially compared to today where everything is more clean and digital and sterile, and it just does not have that vibe. I get submissions from all over the world every year. Hundreds of people just send me their music and their projects to listen to, and it's crazy how many talented people there are that follow, some of my projects. The number one problem I would say that I hear, and this is just my opinion, and it's not something I tell them unless they ask for constructive criticism, but is this there's something left to be desired in the recording aesthetic. It's just not something people either pay much attention to or know how to change, from recording in their computer to making it sound a certain way. It's a really hard task to achieve, actually, to dirty up a recording, in a tasteful way to enhance it. It's something I've been working on for more than 30 years now, and there's not exactly a plethora of information about this out there about how to do that. Even if you were to go to like some formal education for music production or engineering, they might teach you about some saturation plugins or something, but there's a lot more to it than that. Anyway, this cassette tape trick is a production trick that I use that's cheap, it's easy to do, it pays dividends by adding a awesome vibe to certain elements of your recordings that you choose to process through there. Don't get me wrong, I do use the heck out of digital. It makes my life way easier than analog does, but I do spend a lot of effort trying to dirty things up, whether it's analog gear being modeled as plugins or certain mic and preamp combinations, or running stuff out into other things like a tape deck or an old speaker and re-miking it. It makes a huge difference. All right, for this cassette tape trick, you need obviously a cassette deck. It doesn't have to be a pro one. My Tascam finally died after like 30 years. That was a really nice deck, so I bought a $50 deck off Craigslist and met some dude at a gas station, and it works fine. And we're trying to degrade the sound anyway, so it doesn't have to be, some $2,000 tape deck. Yeah, buy a $50 used one. What I like to do is pick certain sounds out of my project file and target those ones to be dirtied up, the sounds that are going to kind of pop out to the listener's ear. It's not the kind of thing that would sound great if you did it on a whole bunch of stuff, unless you're really going for that sort of really lo-fi sound. I pick things like software keyboard plugins. I'm always looking for a way to make them less clean, so those work great. Almost any keyboards are going to sound awesome doing this. I like to pick things like percussion or clean guitars. I usually wouldn't do it on like a whole drum kit or a whole mix, unless I'm going for that sort of thing. Sometimes with High Castle, I'll do like an alternate mix and really hit the tape hard and then call it like cruddy cassette remix or something. And for certain tunes, it has a nice little charm, but in general, I would pick certain sounds that are going to help, bring the listener's ear, to that sound. Why does tape sound good anyway? In digital, if your signal's too loud, it'll just clip and have an unpleasant sort of digital artifact. In analog, once you hit the maximum level it can go, it can't get any louder. But you try to push it louder, it's just going to compress the tape more and distort it in, what I think is sort of a pleasing way. I don't know exactly all the science of the magnetization of the tape becoming saturated or whatever, but when the magnetic field is too strong, and the input signal is too strong, it results in tape saturation and compression, which is cool because it has that compression effect, but it also has that sort of breaking up or that overdrive sound a little bit. When I'm running a signal to tape, I usually smash it pretty hard. I'll try like 3 different settings, maybe like light, medium, and then I'll say do one really hard. And I kind of judge by the needles. Like if the needles are being completely buried and not moving back at all, that's probably a little too much. You want a little bit of give, but it can be pretty much pinned as long as it has a little bit of breathing room and some headroom. It's not an exact science, really, just use your ear. So, all right, so let me give you an example of how I use it. This is a tune I'm recording for the forthcoming High Castle Tele Orchestra record, and I don't want to give too much away, so I'll just, give a couple components. We've got some stand-up bass I recorded a few days ago, so that's here. Then we have some MIDI drums. Dave Murray still needs to send me the drum tracks for this one. Come on, Dave, let's get it done. So that's just sort of like this jazz. It sounds almost like a jazz march, but it's going to be more like a big band type of thing. And then we have this B3 organ. So I'm using a keyboard plugin. I'm using Native Instruments. So let's listen to it just, as is. It's a pretty good model. I mean, it's a pretty good plugin. It is really deep. It accounts for, all sorts of different modifications you can do on a real B3 organ, including things like drive, and then they've got like spring reverb. So there's ways to, to dirty it up in here for sure. I mean, listen what happens if I turn up the drive. Turn it down. Some verb. Anyway, yeah, they definitely have some of that stuff in there. So there's ways you can sort of approximate some of that, but I usually like to take it a step further, and that's why I'm going to send it out to the tape, and then we're going to compare these two sounds, next to each other. So what you want to do is just set up a loop and just run this organ part, 3 different times to the tape machine, and then I'll do 3 different settings. So I'm going to put a loop, solo just the organ, and then we're going to go ahead and bounce that out to tape. Okay, so we ran it out to tape, did 3 different levels of smashing the input, and I brought it back into the computer already. I have it right here. And I'm going to just add a couple plugins because I know what happens. When you smash things that hard, there tends to be a buildup in the sort of low mids. So you got to get that out if you want it to be more clear on the mix. So one plugin I love for that is IK Multimedia. It's a emulation of a Neve 1073, which also has like really nice analog drive. If I turn that up, it's crazy. But I'm not going to use this for that. The EQ on a Neve is so good because you don't have to really do much except turn the knob up and down. They already have their curves sort of worked out for that classic sound. So let's put a high pass on at 80 hertz just to make sure there's nothing low that gets through. And then the muddy buildup is going to be down here somewhere around 220. So check this out. And if you wanted to add a little brightness, it might sound like too much now, but it is really hard to cut through a mix with like drums and everything. So you're always coming back to that on certain tones and like turning it up or turning it down. So there's without it. Just cuts a little better. So anyway, let's listen to our lightly smashed. That's this one. It's pretty good. Let's listen to our medium. It's maybe more than medium. let's listen to our super smashed. And then if you want to remember what the clean one sounded like, let's go back over here. Compared to the medium smash. Anyway, I think I'm probably going to end up going with the medium for this tune, and so I'll line it back up here and show you what that's like. I am, just a side note, I'm not a person that's afraid to go for an extreme tone. I think it really helps recordings stick out, where you might listen to that by itself and be like, man, that's just way too much. And, you know, I think I do overdo it sometimes and then have to go back, but I usually just make a decision and sort of run with it and don't think twice about it. So not afraid to go for a totally ridiculous, distorted tone on an organ. So now I have the two sound bites lined up. Here's the dry, here's just the digital organ, and then here's the one from tape, the medium smash. And so when I dump this back in, they will not be perfectly lined up because tape has some sort of natural drift, you know, based on its mechanism and some variability. Where digital is just a perfect copy. But a short segment like this shouldn't be too much of a drift, but you still got to fix it. There's two ways to do this. I could look at the waveforms and just time stretch the tape to make it exactly the same. And you can see right here that when we get to the last hit, this the tape is a little ahead of the digital, which is up here. But I don't really like time stretching if I don't have to, because it does add some unpleasant digital artifacts. It would be really slight in this case, but I think a better way is to make a cut, you know, right in the middle. Since this is such a short segment, I'm just going to make one, and then I go to the last hit I can see, which is right here. You know, I don't know if I want to mess with any of these because the waveform is hard to see. This entrance is very clear right here. So here's where I want it to be, but here's where it is. So I'm just going to drag this over, and then we'll go back to that transition point in the middle there and put, you know, a 10 millisecond crossfade just to make sure there's no little glitch right there. And then they're going to be lined up just fine, just like that. So the last thing I want to do to this organ sound right there is add a little, I don't know, the plugin, I could have taken care of this earlier, I just didn't. The plugin has like a very wide stereo spread. It's like the Leslie, I don't know. It's cool to mic it up like that, but a lot of times when I hear classic recordings, you know, it's like, say, Billy Preston taking a solo on Sam Cooke's Night Beat record or any of that, to me, it pretty much sounds like the organ's coming out of one place. It's not this really wide stereo. I'm not usually a huge fan of those types of tones. They're just too modern sounding. So I'm going to add a plugin, a trim plugin here, which also has some panning controls. So I can adjust the stereo field there. I can totally mono. Or I could leave a little of that spread they had going on. I don't know. All right, now for comparison, I want to take the clean organ sound, the one that didn't go to tape, and let's add a plugin that's a cassette tape emulation. They have a lot of really good plugins these days. I'm not opposed to using those at all to achieve the same result, although it doesn't quite sound the same. It's a different flavor. So let's see what that sounds like. My favorite one on the market is Waves Factory Cassette. So let's pull that one up, and I've got the clean organ going here. All right, so this plug is very versatile. You can choose different types of cassettes, although like the metal, the CR02, different biases or whatever. Pro unit, home unit, micro cassette, the pitch stability, the noise. So one way we achieve that distortion sound that I got off the other tape was just to drive the input harder and turn down the output a little bit. So let's see what that sounds like. Oh yeah, we're bypassed, sorry. Oh, geez. That's a little too much, huh? Ugh. Okay. Now, one thing I like to do before I do any parameters is just scroll through the different tape settings. That's way better. I think I like that second one better. It's not bad. I think I like this one. So you can hear there's noise in there. I can change that. I mean, we don't really love tape because of the noise, so I usually kind of turn that off. Stability is going to be like how much pitch wobbling there is. Like on the tape, you can make it more extreme. They can do like erasures and all this stuff. Home, micro cassette. And then there's all these other parameters in here. It's just ridiculous, the number of things you can do. You can do like a percentage of the mix, so you only add some of that in, but that can introduce some phasing sometimes, especially when oversampling is checked. But I'm just trying to approximate what I did on the tape. Pitch is warbling there. Okay, too much. Same there, the wow depth. So let's try the two comparisons. So there's the new one with the plug-in. Then here's the real cassette. Plug-in. It's not bad. I mean, there's definitely some you can use. I prefer the cassette in this case, but it's a great tool to have, and I do use it all the time, for sure. All right, so let's hear it with the other tracks. Here's the tape organ from Cassette with that MIDI drums and the stand-up bass. Just for comparison, here was the clean one. Not bad. Sounds pretty good. But the dirty. You'll hear that on the record. It's gonna pop out for sure. Anyway, another application for this, I won't get into it here, would be like, let's say you have some kind of hand drum loop or something that's from in the computer and you plan on replacing it, with a real drummer, a real percussionist at some point, but you're going to have to listen to this for the next 6 months while you overdub other stuff on top of it, and you just want the vibe to be more inspiring. Slam that out to tape, run it back in, line it up, and you wouldn't believe how much better it will sound. So I'll do another video on that at some point. Anyway, thanks so much for watching. I'm going to be doing countless videos like this at my conservatory with all kinds of different subject matter, from chord progressions and theory and arrangement and composition, orchestration, engineering stuff. Please subscribe below. Sign up for my email list at highcastleteleorchestra.com to stay in touch with the latest and to give I give free giveaways on email list people. So thanks for watching and have a good day.